we are going to move on now to our final, and as they say, last but not least, in fact, our headliner today is Her Grace Rambhoru Devi, who is here with us. She's just such a deep source of inspiration. I first started hearing the name Rambhoru echoing around the European RGB and the Euro RGB during the Ukraine and Russian crisis. And everyone was saying, Rambhoru Devi is helping. Rambhoru Devi is in there. Rambhoru Devi is counseling devotees. And I was like, who is this? Rambhoru, Mother Rambhoru. And then Karuna Care, Karuna Care, Karuna Care. And then, of course, connecting with Sundar Nand Prabhu with the BMA. And he could not sing her glories enough. Rambhoru Devi has been practicing Bhakti Yoga for 50 years, since 1974 when she joined. She's a director and founder of Karuna Care Association, an organization established to educate and support Bhakti practitioners through courses enhancing their spiritual, emotional, and relational growth. Rambhoru Devi provides crisis support through a Get Help button. So if you need help, you just have to press the button. It's a Get Help button. It's easy. Where volunteer chaplains are trained by her and respond to people in crisis within 48 hours. So there's a long list of Mother Rambhoru's qualifications. My wife, I, and other devotees from Bhaktivedanta Manor were fortunate to take several of her introductory courses dealing with grief and trauma and loss, and they were so valuable, so important for us to assist and help other devotees. So we're so grateful for you, Rambhoru Devi. If I'm not mistaken, it's somewhere like 5:45 or 6 in the morning. And
it's 6 a.m. We're in Australia, in the Gold Coast. Yeah, New Govardhan. Yeah.
So thank you so much for joining us, and we're looking forward to having your input. Grateful. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. All right. So I have a little PowerPoint. Nice to be here. And sorry I missed the first part of the presentations, but it sounded like there was with the theme. We're kind of on a theme here. It's so much about communication and listening. So is it possible to share the screen, or am I empowered to do that? Let's see if I can.
Have the ability to do that.
Okay. Can everybody see this first frame? Yeah. All right. Let me. I haven't done this in a while, so let me get my thing here together so it's open. All right. So you all have just heard a little bit about Karuna Care and myself. I was told to put a little tagline. That is the website address. I have it also at the end. So my topic today is really what started in a big way Karuna Care. We started right when COVID started, and I became aware in our communities and people reaching out to me how isolated and lonely people are, even within the movement, what to speak of being isolated in COVID. Since then, the US Surgeon General has actually put out a huge booklet on how isolation and loneliness is an epidemic, not just in this country, but probably in the world. And it is probably the number one cause of illness and even death, which is shocking to think of it that way. The impacts on mental health people are at risk of depression, anxiety, suicide, and mood disorders just by being alone. This is why, in prisons, being in solitary confinement for a long time is torturous. We are social beings. We need each other. Physical health, it impacts by heart disease and stroke, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and impaired immune function. You never think of making that connection. It increases cognitive decline, makes a person at risk of dementia, and particularly in older adults. Can also trigger stress responses in the body, leading to increased inflammation, and has negative impacts on the body, the physiological systems. So we have this amazing model that Rupa Goswami gave us. And often we read it through and it becomes kind of a, okay, we do that already. That's built into the ISKCON structure. Offering gifts, offer incense, a piece of maha, some little something, a piece of jewelry from the deities. We receive gifts. We offer and receive prasadam, which kind of looks like in the temple, standing in a line, going through a thing, getting prasadam, and often just leaving or sitting by yourself eating. I mean, that's what I've seen. I'm in a large community here at New Govardhan, and it isn't often just sitting down and sharing prasadam. And revealing the mind in confidence and listening to another reveal their mind in confidence. So these are kind of basic, but as I've done this work of chaplaincy, I've gone a little deeper into it and realized this is a super important piece that we often miss. As I thought about these 6 loving exchanges, I realized we're really talking about 3 things, not 6 things. It's 3 things. First of all, the greatest gift we have is time. More than the little devotional knickknacks we share with each other, which are wonderful. The greatest gift you can give each other is just sharing time. And time is your life energy, and you don't get it back. You can get money back, but you don't get your time back. So it is the greatest gift. Offering and receiving prasadam really boils down to sharing a meal, sitting down with another person with intentional focus and presence, sharing a meal, not just sitting alone at a temple feast. It really means being engaged in empathic listening and presence, being with one another, even while doing service, being tuned in, connected. And revealing the mind means to listen to another reveal their mind in confidence. I have heard this translated into so many strange notions of what does that mean to reveal the mind in confidence. In the behavioral sciences, that word specifically means confidentiality, not sharing it on Facebook, the stories you hear from one another. It's considered in chaplaincy completely unethical to even share positive stories about other people. It's only my right to share my story. You do not have a right to share my story. So listening from the heart with empathy and understanding and no judgment. This is what it means, this one loving exchange, to reveal the mind and to listen to someone reveal their mind in heart-connecting conversation. So boiling it down again, 3 loving exchanges, sharing time, sharing a meal prepared with love and offered to the Lord, and sharing personal stories about our spiritual growth, insights, and challenges. I'm living in a very large community here where we have a retreat center, a wellness center. So there's a constant influx of new people who are mostly in transition. I have a little Karuna Care office now. Everybody that comes in that office gets a Bhagavad Gita as part of their gift. But what I'm noticing in not just this community, but other communities, is that when people get together, that it often devolves into gossip or criticizing other people, which is really not in the domain of devotional service. It's just sort of, it's kind of a conditioning that we bring in. And what I'm advocating through these 3 loving exchanges is that we need to have social engagement, and it doesn't need to devolve into gossip and criticizing. One of the things I see with devotees who want to avoid those qualities, they just avoid relationship. They just don't talk to people. They put on a thing and they go to their service and they go back to their home, and they just don't engage because they're afraid of Vaishnava aparat. But there's a third option, learning how to engage in heart-connecting conversations. And that means sharing your story of Krishna consciousness, about what are you learning? What is your new insights and your growth? What are your challenges? So since the beginning of time, if you look at, any caveman, people forever have been sitting around a campfire, singing songs, telling stories, and sharing food. Well, guess what? This is what creates community. We don't, at Krishna Village here at New Govardhan, they do a lot of campfire singing and storytelling. It is one of the most attractive features for people who seek shelter here as guests, as prospective devotees, just being together, sharing time, food, stories, song. And of course, we have our fire yagyas and fireplaces, but there's something super magic and connecting about doing all of that, the food, the stories, and song around fire. You know, Agni is a very powerful energy. And at the center of our bodies, we have the fire of digestion, and the center of our communities needs to be this fire. One thing that is interesting as we think about human behavior, behavioral scientists have noticed, of course, most of you have perhaps heard of Maslow's pyramid of human needs, you know, and every model of human need psychology has to do with the need for love and belonging. Everybody universally needs to feel loved and belong. But the interesting thing is that there's this paradox in relationship. We've developed behaviors that actually push people away, knowingly or unknowingly. We don't even know. It's part of our conditioning in terms of responses or coping things from generational and collective trauma, dissociating. We have a real deep down fear of human intimacy, which has a lot to do with the self. I'd rather text you rather than talk to you. I'd rather email rather than, you know, I'd rather do everything through a device rather than being together. And part of that has to do with the fear of not being good enough or rejection. So this is what we're up against in terms of trying to develop heart connecting communities, is being aware of those behaviors that knowingly or unknowingly push people away, which means that we never get that need for love and belonging met, because people don't tend to want to be around somebody who's all the time pushing them away with whatever behavior. So part of the way back is learning a few skills, you know, learning just to stop talking, listen without advising and judging. I mean, this is such a simple thing. It's so difficult to do. I train professionals in Los Angeles to try and do these things, and we have to role play it and videotape ourselves. As much as we understand here that, yeah, of course, everybody knows that, it is not so easy to practice, because we are so, particularly as Hare Krishna devotees, we're so how do you say, conditioned to now have to tell and teach and preach to people. And while that may have its context, it doesn't help in terms of trying to create heart connections with fellow members. Prabhupada said, you know, that if you are in the shower already, if somebody's in the shower already, there's no point now advising them to get in the shower. In due course of time, they're going to get cleaned off. So devotees who are in this process are already in the process. And so, you know, there's preaching that goes on in the Vyasa-san and book distribution stuff. But in terms of our peership or our collective community relationships, it really needs to be more about listening. We need some listening centers. We've got plenty of preaching centers, but we need to learn how to actually listen. And it is so attractive. If you've ever met someone who is a good listener, it's all attractive. And that's an attribute of Krishna that we could learn from. Many people think, oh, I need to go see a counselor or a licensed person to be listened to with care. That's not really true. Everybody can learn how to listen. In fact, it's a real basic skill that we need just to be in relationship. I think Uttama and Partha have talked about that, and probably Mahatma too. In the Mental Health First Aid USA manual, it says that most people experiencing distressing emotions and thoughts want an empathetic listener before being offered helpful options and resources. Often we'll find ourselves, when somebody's telling us that they're having a challenge in Krishna consciousness, or maybe a marital challenge or a relational challenge, or they're just struggling to keep up, we go to advising. I saw this very particularly when my son got cancer a few years ago. Everybody comes with their cures. They want to tell you how to fix it. And that is probably not the first thing to lead with. First, find out what the person's need is just by listening with care and desire to understand. So just a couple of things, in terms of showing empathy, the next time you encounter someone who's experiencing a mental health crisis or just struggling, is to focus on trying to convey empathy, which really means understanding. That's basically what that means. Convey to them that you understand, that you validate, even you don't agree with whatever they're saying, but the idea of being supportive and not trying to change the person or their perspective. Just listen with a desire to understand. Sometimes it's really helpful to slow down, just to engage, because distress often increases the speed of our speech and gestures. So if we're listening to someone who's in distress, then they may be all hyped up, but if we can calm down and be present, that will also help them calm down and be present. And if we give people a little bit of time, because they might be confused in a stressed situation, give them enough time and space to be able to express themselves. Don't be in a hurry to okay, come on, hurry up, get it over with. You're wasting my time. I've got work to do. I've got service to do. And then obviously communicate with the body. 85% of our communication is body language. Being just relaxed in our own bodies as we listen, staying close enough to the person to show that we care, being focused, not on our phone while we're listening or doing something else, but being focused on the person and trying to listen, and not actually feeling the need to touch the person without asking. Sometimes, in America, I notice, and I notice here in the village, everybody wants to hug everybody for everything. And some people don't feel comfortable doing a lot of hugging. It's something we learned in the hospital. Somebody has had a crisis. They think, oh, I want to give you a hug. I'll always ask a person, because you do have people who have trauma on board, and that's like physical touch just does not do it for me. And so always ask. Our distress, whatever distress we're undergoing, it increases when we feel isolated. That was one reason that Cicely Saunders, the founder of hospice, created hospice, was because she realized that suffering is already hard, but suffering alone makes it even harder. So just to be aware that when somebody is going through a life crisis, that being alone is probably the worst thing they can be. And we can show our empathy by helping a person just by being present. Another thing to remember is we're human beings, and the person in front of us, whatever the situation they're in, are also human beings. We're not perfect. All of us have needs and struggles. We all have desires. And although you might fear making someone uncomfortable by reaching out and trying to listen, remember that many people experiencing mental health symptoms. They want someone to notice them and to offer support. So what I've seen is when somebody's having a difficulty, maybe they're acting out in some way, maybe they're upset and saying things they don't mean. We go the other way when actually what people really need is to be held and cared for and listened to. It's not easy to stay present, but just know that when someone is having a mental health crisis, most people really want people to notice and to offer support. These are some courses that we are offering, just a little infomercial. We've got a new course in the last year called Guardians of Innocence. It is really a child safety course that nowadays many temples are sending devotees to take before they even do service in the temple. Sadly, some of the people in our temples who are on the CPO team who are not trained, they think that child safety is about not letting them carry the ghee lamp around when they're 10. we have, it seems like that. That's not what this course is about. This course is targeting child sexual abuse and keeping them safe in our expanding communities where we don't know necessarily who's in the festival of 2,000 people, new people coming in, and how do we reduce the vulnerabilities of this happening. It's not just with ISKCON, but it's a universal problem in all religious organizations that, at least in Australia, the government is taking steps to address in religious organizations. Name Your Feelings, Tame Your Mind is coming up this month. We are revamping all of our intro courses, adding new content. If you've taken the courses already, you might find some differences if you were to take them again. Impact of Grief on Spiritual Growth will be next in line after the feelings. Trauma and Addiction. Drama Triangle, Understanding Dynamics in Relationship is a must read in terms of a book, but it's a presentation, a course that's provided from one of our Karuna Care members. And if you get involved with Karuna Care, you're going to find out that we have a lot of book studies going on where, groups are getting together and just educating themselves more and more about self-awareness and interpersonal awareness in relationship. And it also creates community and connection just by sharing that experience. And as Jai Nitai mentioned, we do have a Get Help button. It's a tab on the website. You fill out a little referral form and a disclaimer form, and one of our non-professional, and that's a key word, our Karuna Care chaplains are non-professional chaplains. They're considered to be lay chaplains. However, we do have on that button several licensed grief counselors and other therapists who help us manage that. And if you're responded to by a Karuna Care chaplain, it will mainly provide you with one or two free conversations where they make an assessment whether or not you need to have more significant help. And in that case, you will be referred to a professional therapist or somebody who specializes in whatever issues that you have. And we have also inside that Get Help area, we have grief support groups offered, and we have various healers and also licensed professionals that you can look at and reach out to, many of whom offer devotees sliding scale. They'll give you a 15-minute free consult to see if this is a match, and then you can negotiate with them, whether they can reduce their price or whatever you can afford to be able to support your own care. So that's basically what we have as far as my Karuna Care presentation. And if there's any questions or comments or reflections, maybe some of you have taken some of these courses. We are working on a yoga of listening course because it's such a huge issue. Is how do you do it? How can you be a heart connecting person? So I see Mitra Vinja there. Good to see you. Did you want to ask a question or make a comment or?
Hare Krishna, Rambhoru Devi, and all attending devotees. Please accept my obeisances. So, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I want to thank you, first of all, for seeing you. My dear, you're one of my guys. You're one of my gurus. I truly appreciate you. And you were an amazing source of healing and help for me when I was in my time of need. My question is on trauma. And it's also on my question on trauma regards to how we as a community can help others understand that trauma should not be a business. It should not be a weapon to minimize people's voices who have or want to heal or are searching for help, but also on divorce in our communities and having some way to support not the aspect of divorce, but those who have gone through it, and families and communities in a healthy way can move through it in a way that means cooperation in Krishna consciousness. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Oh, well, that's those two big topics. Trauma being used as a weapon. I go to education. I mean, that's why I have Karuna Care. There's so much we don't know that we don't know. And I am an advocate of opening those conversations at New Govardhan. I do workshops where not just the Hare Krishna devotees in the community, but in the Krishna village, who are the woofas that work for food, volunteers. We have us mix and have open conversations about these kinds of things, dreaming a new dream for our community. But I just think we need to talk, and it just requires some facilitated sessions where we can debrief. There's so many people. In fact, I don't know anybody who doesn't have in their history some kind of trauma, either childhood trauma or collective trauma, where, third generations coming down from the Jewish Holocaust, for example. If you have grandparents who were in that, you never saw the inside of a Nazi prison camp, but you have this impact of trauma, symptoms of trauma. I think we just need to educate ourselves. And I think Uttama said, we need to bring mental health issues out of the closet. There's no shame in these things. Most of us have reached out and taken shelter for the Hare Krishna movement as an alternative to the horrible suffering we experienced in the material world as a result of Rajas tamas, and trauma. So it just, in my view, needs to be, there needs to be spaces where we can, in a safe way, with human dignity, talk about these things with someone who's able to listen and respond. In terms of divorce, this is something that I have been absolutely horrified by in our movement, that it may be that I'm thinking of a person who had 2 children, a husband whose wife left with another man, some other man who wasn't even a devotee, and the whole community. I mean, he didn't leave. He didn't leave the movement. He didn't leave his spouse, but the whole community stopped talking to him, didn't want his kids to play with their kids, and he's all by himself now trying to practice and keep going. And I think that's a terrible, terrible message to give to someone who is experiencing a life crisis. But I cannot tell you how often this happens behind the scenes. You're shunned. And I think sometimes marriages don't work out. Sometimes there's unprocessed trauma that, as I think Uttama and Partha were talking about as I came in, but sometimes it's irreconcilable, there's abuse perhaps, and it just doesn't work out. And that doesn't disqualify a person from needing devotee association and wanting to pursue Krishna consciousness. So I don't know much more to say about that. We do have a divorce grief support group. We have resources that are phenomenal in terms of recovering. It is a crisis almost to the level of death. A divorce is a huge traumatic event. Even if it was you who left the relationship, it is an enormous loss, very painful. So to shun people because they've had a divorce, or do a whole reputation attack and all of that, adds vinegar into the wounds. And this is not bhakti behavior. This is not Vaishnava behavior. So I don't know what else to say about that. That's another presentation of its own. Yeah, Jai Nitai.
Someone asked in the, thank you very much, Rambhoru Devi. Someone asked in the chat, share the name of the book with the author that the course below is based on, Escaping the Drama Triangle. So,
well, there's a little book, you can buy it. It started with a book discussion, Yamuna Jivan from Chicago, I think, Neighborsville. He's part of Devotee Care out there. He developed a wonderful course where he's presenting it, and then there's discussion with it. But it's called TED, The Empowerment Dynamic, TED. It's by David Emerald, and it's an antidote to the Cartman's drama triangle, which is sort of the unhealthy dynamics in relationships that people play. And it's such a tiny little book, and in the back few pages, sums it all up. It does a story to illustrate these various healthy ways of responding rather than in the toxic drama triangle. And I cannot tell you how devotees are like, whoa, this has just totally changed my world. Okay, I'll write it down.
Also, maybe one last question. We have a little bit of time. I was wondering, so much in the chat. Oh, yeah. So you mentioned about sharing only my story and confidentiality, which is, yeah, vitally important. And that's great. I'm just wondering, so is it not good to share any stories from our experience in talking with devotees that we may have if we don't use names and exact details? Or is it the principle that basically whatever we, in that confidential space, we don't take that out into a public arena? Could you clarify on that?
Well, here's the thing. Even sometimes people say, for example, you have a young couple and they just discovered they're pregnant, and everybody, you would think, well, that's exciting. Let's tell everybody. You want to tell their good news. They may not want you to tell that news until they, in early pregnancy, people lose babies, right? So you might be in your third trimester, but some people don't jinx it. There's a kind of a thing there. So it's their story to tell. It's their joy to tell. In terms of talking about dramatic stories, at least in my profession, you can talk about some things without using names. The sad reality is often people by the description know who you're talking about. They know who you're talking. And ISKCON is a small space. But it's really a real discipline is learning to listen. And if you want to share what they have shared, to ask them, gosh, this was a really touching story. Would you mind if I share that with someone? Because maybe they've told you something that has changed their life. Maybe they've had, all of us have our histories before we come to the Hare Krishna movement. And, we might be sharing that with you for the first time ever, and nobody else knows this piece. It's always good to ask, would you mind if I shared that? It was very touching to me. But there's something very, you feel like you've been violated if now someone comes up to you that has heard something that you have told secondhand and in confidence, and they go, God, I heard about your surgery, or I heard about some people don't want other people knowing that. And so it's just an ethical principle is that don't assume that other people want you to share their stories. Any of this, I mean, not by story, I mean just about their life. And it makes my exchange with you clear and direct. As soon as you're now talking about people, you're in a triangle. You're not direct relating. So that doesn't enhance my relationship with you, to talk about you with other people. And intelligent people don't talk about people, they talk about ideas. I mean, that's a known reality. And even if we may say that was a great lecture, I really appreciated that. But we may know some smut on other people that nobody else knows. And gosh, why would you spread that around? You want to ask yourself, why do I need to share that? What am I trying to accomplish by sharing that heartache or that pain? It may well be, and this might be the only legitimate thing, is if somebody in the community is looking like they're struggling and they're not reaching out and you're afraid for their life or for their health, that might be a conversation to have, first of all, intimately with maybe temple management or somebody who's qualified to reach out to them. I mean, there are devotees who isolate when they have problems and their life might be at risk because they don't know who to go to, who they can trust, because gossip is so rampant. People go like, I don't want to talk, I don't want to go there because I don't know confidentiality. I can't trust that they're going to keep my confidence. So, but that was just what I would say. Yeah.
Perfect answer, Mother. Thank you so much. That was very enlightening and uplifting. And I think we're just about out of time. So I'd like to thank you, Rambhoru Devi. I'd like to thank Uttama Partha Prabhu's Mahatma Prabhu, who's also still here, and just so grateful to all the devotees who took their time to join and be here today. I hope everyone has felt this is has been nourishing. Even though there were little teasers or tasters for each of these personalities, but please reach out to them, get in touch with them, avail of what they're offering to our devotee community. For so many years, they've dedicated their lives. They have such a wealth of experience and insight. So please let us all join in thanking these four wonderful guests who've taken their valuable time to be with all of us today. So you can put your thanks in the chat for them, an outpouring of gratitude. And also just thank you again to Suniti Devi and Ramareti Devi, who have facilitated this course and are looking to do more courses like this. So to our guest speakers, they will likely be in touch with you to see if we can do a whole session with just yourselves on a specific topic. And yeah, thank you all very much for your valuable time and energy. I feel very grateful, very honored, and just overwhelmed with so much wisdom and knowledge that I can't wait to get started on it again. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everyone.
Haribol.